imagine if you started an e-com, product line that was really well and you decided to go into brick and mortar space. Imagine one location, but imagine opening up 15 locations. How do you track inventory across all of those locations? How do you track inventory at your brick and mortar compared to the e-com? How do you allocate that inventory? How does that impact your S&OP planning and procurement planning and all of these things that kick off?
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm, Elevate IQ. The warehouse has been the receiver of most automation technologies. Now, so much hardware is available that you can automate your entire warehouse, including picking, packing, sorting, loading, or unloading. There are also various categories of software available, ranging from WMS, TMS, WCS, S&OP, and a lot more. The software is segmented depending upon the complexity of warehouse operations. So where does Logiwa stand in its capabilities, and how does it compare with the other supply chain software? In today's episode, we invited a panel of industry experts for a live discussion on LinkedIn to conduct an independent review of Logiwa WMS capabilities. We covered many grounds, including their strengths with e-commerce and DTC fulfillment capabilities. We also covered the architectural issues with business models where either they might be overcommitting their capabilities or overstretching themselves. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. And if you're joining for the first time, this is part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. We pick one vendor or the solution. We review independently. And for today, we have a very interesting solution. And this is a series, Dave. You have done one, I guess, as part of the series. And today we are doing Logiwa WMS, which is also a very big WMS vendor. And this is a series of all the WMS solution. We have seen some trend. So now we are going to see a lot more trend in that. So we are going to dig into that. Before we do that, we are going to start with everybody's intros. I am going to start with my intro. Sam Gupta, principal at Elevate IQ. Elevate IQ is the independent ERP and digital transformation consulting firm. On that note, I'm going to move to Dave for his intro.
Thanks, Sam. Hey, everybody. My name is Dave Chrysler, and I own an operations consulting business working with leaders in manufacturing and distribution, helping them to work towards operational efficiency and operational excellence. I come to you with more than 20 years of various operational leadership roles, which included several ERP implementations, and excited to be here with you today, Sam. Thanks for having me.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much for being here, Dave. And if you're in the audience and joining for the first time, make sure you guys post your questions or comments. We typically try to cover them during the show. If we run out of time, we'll make sure that you receive your answers. So, Dave, I know we have sort of started building these layers, and typically we analyze every single system through the same layers, right? So now you have some sense overall in terms of how these solutions are laid out a little bit, I guess. So in my mind, I have at least 3 or 4 layers that I think are really critical for the WMS solution. So I think last time when we were discussing that, one of the most critical thing for these solutions is always going to be that internal versus external supply chain. The second layer that we have is going to be for WMS for slightly more mainstream businesses, meaning mainstream businesses, I mean, most businesses are mainstream. But when I say manufacturing value chain, which is going to be your manufacturing, distribution, retail versus 3PL, which is slightly different business model in general, the way the business works. So that is one distinction. Some solutions are designed for that because that becomes very, very, very different business. The way transactions are going to be, the way they are going to be, picking, packing, shipping, the way their warehouse, architecture is going to be, the way they are going to be interfacing with all of these vehicles. It's going to be very, 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 very different, business model, business transactions. Now, the third layer, which is probably the new one, okay? So here, and I guess we touched slightly briefly last time as well, okay, which is going to be e-commerce, which is going to be slightly more parcel-centric, processes versus a real 3PL truckload, all of those processes. Now, the transactions that you have for e-commerce, it's a very, 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 very different business in the way it works. Okay, if you are going to be implementing a WMS solution that is really designed for a truckload, it's going to be really hard for e-commerce people to be able to use, just because they don't require that transactional thickness. And this is the same comparison even with the ERP system. When you have retail centric transaction, you have a different ERP system. When you have slightly thicker transaction, you have different ERP system. So this is a similar mindset. The other thing I guess we had touched last time is that whole integration perspective. So some of the WMS systems are going to be combined as your WMS, TMS, OMS, S&OP, planning, all of that. So they have a lot packed in, and POS, by the way, packed in as part of one solution. Some of them may not be. The newer, smaller solutions, they are not going to do as much heavy lifting. So that's one distinction. And then planning, obviously, is one area which is very, very, very different, deep, the way it works. Okay, so you have the transactional aspect of the things, and then you have the planning aspect of the things. So where is Logiwa? Okay, so in this particular case, these guys are pure play e-commerce. They do e-commerce really, really, really well. Okay, they started like that, and you are going to get a feel of Shopify. Okay, when you are going to compare this versus some of the other legacy systems, you are going to feel that, okay, UX superior for these guys. Okay, for other guys may not be as great, but that does not mean that they are any bad. They are designed for a different purpose. Okay, so make sure where you are in your journey, in your processes, in your transactions, and based on that, it will dictate which system is going to be more efficient for you. So I'm going to pause there. Dave, do you have any commentary there by any chance?
Yeah, I mean, good way to unpack all of that, just like you did last week. I mean, there's so many nuanced distinctions, and it all relates back to model and processes. So I thought you did a great job of unpacking all of that. Interesting to see where this platform sits in terms of being more e-com focused. So I'm excited to get into, some of the slides here, because I think oftentimes for many businesses, mainstream businesses included, e-com has been an afterthought. I mean, it really came to be after traditional business channels. So for many businesses, this is kind of how do you take a legacy go to market and shoehorn e-commerce into it. So when that happens, looking for a platform similar to this, that's where I think a lot of people are looking. Then you've obviously got all of the integration challenges, and then depending on what your model really is, when you kind of strip back, those layers within it, then you can really get into, like we always talk about, what from a platform technology standpoint really makes the most sense given where you're at today, where you like to be, and again, what processes need to be executed, and where that data and information is ultimately going to live, and where it's going to be utilized, right? Because we talk about where it lives a lot. We don't always talk about how it's going to be utilized given the process flow internally to it and really externally for any given business.
Yeah, could not agree more. And I like your shoehorn comment a lot, to be honest. Okay. And the other layer that I am going to add to that is, even if you are going to be e-commerce business, coming back to your legacy model could be equally challenging as well. That could be equal shoehorning, because you probably started at Shopify, maybe you use this WMS, and now you need to implement, let's say, brick and mortar. Good luck with that. It could be even more challenging.
That's a really good point, because it doesn't, especially certainly today we don't necessarily think of it from that standpoint, but the complexities are equally there. To your point, I mean, imagine if you started an ecom product line that was really well, and you decided to go into brick and mortar space. Imagine one location, but imagine opening up 15 locations. How do you track inventory across all of those locations? How do you track inventory at your brick and mortar compared to the e-com? How do you allocate that inventory? How does that impact, your S&OP planning and procurement planning and all of these things that kick off? So that's a great point to bring up, because it's not often we talk about it the other way. I think much more often in terms of traditional business and then going the e-com route, but we don't always talk about it going the other way. And for sure that happens, right? It's much easier. Yeah, it's much easier in today's technology to launch something online, gauge success, and then potentially go to retail versus the other way. So, and then you've got partnership sales channels that you could that you could complicate things. I mean, there's so many directions, like everything, right? So yeah, really interesting.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I think, the more layers you're going to add, the more complex your business model is. That is going to drive your system architecture as well. They are so interwoven.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Okay, so if you don't have any other comments, I mean, we can probably move to the slides. So here, obviously this is a very established vendor. There's no question about that. They are very well known. They are very well funded. So a lot of respect overall in the WMS community for the solution. Now they have done Series B at this point of time. They are well liked in their user community. No questions there. So this is coming from 2022. And by the way, I mean, there is one thing that I did not discuss, Dave. So like ERP, I think the WMS TMS market is also experiencing the similar transition, where you have the super legacy vendors. They are really struggling to get on cloud. Okay, you have fake cloud and then you have real cloud. Okay, so they are also going through the same journey. So in this particular case, the reason why these guys are really liked and invested, number one, they are going to be easy to use because they are designed for those e-commerce workflows, at least from the novice user perspective, right? I mean, they are always going to feel, okay, e-commerce super easy, Shopify super easy, Logiwa super easy. Let's just get them together. That's how they like to think, right? So in this particular case, this is a cloud platform. That's why investors are really excited about. They are thinking that all of those legacy workloads that we have in the market, all of them are going to be replaced by this solution. Yeah, which is a crazy idea. But I mean, the reason why these guys are really excited is because of the whole cloud aspect of the solution. Now, they are targeting this as they are saying that leading cloud fulfillment platform for high volume. High volume is the key, which is the right keyword, to be honest. And this is going to be for DTC as well as omni-channel business. Any of the omni-channel business, practically speaking, I don't know if true omni-channel really exists. Everybody is struggling with that, but okay, sure. You can probably be 80% omni-channel. Fake omni-channel, okay?
I didn't want to say it, but I mean, it's kind of the same exact,
right?
It's really the same, it really is the same. And it gets down to, people's definition of what that means. So, buyer beware, I would say, when you hear things like that, ask appropriate questions.
Yeah, and honestly speaking, I mean, obviously fake is a keyword right now for this show, I guess. And, even for omnichannel, we are seeing really, really interesting scenarios how people have faked their way to creating that omnichannel experience, which is fundamentally not bad, to be honest.
It's not something I would add to that, Sam, because I believe you're going to continue to see this as additional social platforms emerge and they start to try to develop their own mechanisms to keep people on those specific platforms. But the whole thought of the omni-channel, I'll utilize the example of saying TikTok, right? TikTok just recently announced that they have their own shopping platform, right? And they're releasing that out to some creators. And so when you talk about that, there would be a great example of how are we going to integrate our TikTok shop into our inventory management system, ultimately, it's ever changing is my whole point. So when you hear something like it's omni-channel as of the last set of developments that have happened. And maybe that's not even something that you're doing today or have on your radar. So just, be mindful of some of the marketing speak that happens, the marketing hype. That's, I think, where we come up with the fake omni-channel and the fake cloud.
And
So
Dave, I'm going to sound a little bit outdated here, okay? And these things are really exciting. TikTok, inventory, great, let's do it, But at the same time, I mean, I'm sort of stuck. I mean, if you even talk about that whole POS, WMS,
yeah,
OMS, and just e-commerce, if you have to create omni-channel just in those four components, that is so hard from the architecture perspective. And people are trying to fake that experience. Even today
yeah.
in 2023, they are not able to achieve that. The other things, good luck with that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't disagree with that. I mean, it ends up, the things that end up happening are, bad data, right? Inaccurate data, for sure, across the channels. There's just a host of issues. So I agree. That's, I think we spent enough time on that, but to
Yep, yep,
highlight,
yep. A little fun, right?
yeah, it just, again,
Yeah.
it's back to what attracts people, I think, in general, from a marketing standpoint, and it does that. Just ask appropriate questions. It's always the best advice.
Could not agree more. Okay, so here's some more commentary. So again, they are emphasizing that point, high volume fulfillment, which I really like. They are really clear in terms of what they really want to do when they grow up, I guess. Uh, can increase warehouse order processing capacity by 200% and labor efficiency by more than 40%. Yes, I completely agree. I mean, even for the ERP implementation, WMS is probably going to be a key. If you don't have WMS barcoding, you are really leaving money on the table.
Yeah.
That's just no brainer. So you definitely need to have WMS. Now, some more commentary here, and this is very interesting the way they have designed. And we are going to look at the architecture from their perspective, and they're really deep, which I appreciate that any vendor is talking at that depth. They are really providing the architecture for companies to be able to evaluate, but everybody talks about architecture from their perspective. And that's where the major problem is. For WMS guys, WMS should be everything. For ERP guys, ERP should be everything. For e-commerce guys, e-commerce should be everything. And it becomes a nightmare. The guy who's sort of playing that general contractor role and trying to patch everything together,
Yeah.
it becomes very, very, very hard. So obviously, this perspective is going to be very WMS focused. So here, obviously, they have the EDI functionality, which is amazing, phenomenal. That WMS can do EDI. Now you are talking to other businesses, other sales channels, which is phenomenal. Okay, for some companies that cannot really afford to have that integration, sometimes the companies that are going to be on this WMS, they might be on Shopify, they might not have a real ERP system, maybe an accounting system. They need WMS. WMS is always a priority for business, but they don't really understand why they need an ERP system, right? So that's where they might put all of the EDI integration either in e-commerce or WMS, and that's where the real problems typically start, because you don't really have that centralized view in general of all of the sales channels. And we are going to dig into all of that, why that happens. But here, WMS is doing the real interaction, meaning WMS is cutting the purchase order, cutting the sales order. Sometimes that could be tricky. And sometimes when they say purchase order, it could be just the instance of the purchase order they need to initiate a transaction in their system. So it's going to be just the handover of the process from ERP to WMS, but sometimes it could be a real purchase order, especially for EDI interaction. When you are doing external communication, that means you have bypassed all the systems. And that could be a very interesting conversation that, okay, now this system becomes source of truth for everything, even for the external communication, which is slightly red flag in my mind. But again, depending upon the architectural needs, I guess, you need to evaluate whether EDI is going to make sense from the WMS perspective or not. Any questions there, Dave? No
No, I
comments?
don't. I mean, I don't think so. I think it's kind of, at least on a service level, it appears that there's a significant amount of flexibility there. But to your point, I think without fully understanding, the feature set and what specifically is going to be impacted, it's hard to draw a conclusion from this alone. So
Yeah, and I will make one more comment there just to be clear, because obviously I don't want to generalize any of the conclusion here. When you are a 3PL business, I think your needs are going to be slightly different. Because for a 3PL business, probably your WMS, TMS, they are acting as your ERP system. You probably don't need an ERP, to be honest, because the majority of the processes that you are going to have, you are probably hosting in WMS, TMS. So in your case, probably ERP does not play much of the role, and then you can have EDI as your communicator. Okay, but again, we are going to look into that, and some of the messages that you have, they are slightly more logistics centric. So here 850 is very common. That's your sales order. In my mind, that should come from your that should go to your sales systems, the systems that are processing your sales transactions, because that's your sales message, not really the fulfillment message. Okay, in your WMS, it should be your fulfillment message that should be processed. Okay, typically fulfillment is the outcome of the sales processing, meaning you are doing the fulfillment. There are going to be two branches. One is the finance workflow, and then one is going to be your operational fulfillment workflow, and WMS is going to do that. But sometimes you might not have that, depending upon the business that we are talking about. ASN is very interesting as well. Again, if you're sending ASN from WMS, then ERP is not going to have any knowledge. Sometimes you might send some information to ERP. I don't like that architecture, to be honest, okay? Because you are doing after the fact, as opposed to having clarity in the architecture. 940 is the remote warehouse to ship orders, and that is very interesting as well, because you are sort of splitting the order. It could be interesting. Go ahead, Dave.
So question on that is that, I mean, I guess I could see a use case either way, from either the 3PL perspective or centralized warehousing, spread out, or decentralized warehousing. Do you have any additional insight into that functionality, Sam? I'm curious. I don't know if I've necessarily seen that specific EDI called out before.
Yeah, so honestly speaking, I think this is going to be more of the either dropship scenario or the internal
Okay,
dropship. So basically,
got
you
it.
are splitting the order, and the remote warehouse is sort of, shipping the order. So you are instructing the warehouse. But typically, that depending upon where you want to keep that decision making. I mean, I would keep in one system. Okay,
Yeah,
make your mind the system that is going to be. If you are using WMS as your ERP system, okay, but make sure all of your sales channel go through WMS. Okay, technically that's not possible. That's why you have e-commerce ERP, to be honest. Okay, and the only reason why ERP system is centralized system is because you are trying to centralize all of that. The decision making is centralized, so your traceability is going to be easy. Debugging is going to be easy. But make your mind in terms of what you want to do.
yeah.
But sometimes this could be an OMS, sometimes that could be an e-commerce WMS as well. 945 used by warehouses to notify a trading partner that a shipment was made, and that is also a business-to-business communication notification. That's a very interesting one. Again, I would I would instruct ERP, and ERP should be instructing, just because you want to keep the communication centralized. So you have everything at one place, then multiple systems doing the communication. 753 refers to the request for routing instruction document. Supplier uses this code to ask a purchaser how they want their product to be shipped. It is generally used for shipments originating from single location and bound to be delivered to one or more destination. Again, a lot of moving pieces there. A lot of parties involved. So depending upon how you want to design the communication, I guess. But again, I'm not a big fan of doing these things inside WMS in general. 754 used in retail to manage inbound freight from suppliers. And again, if that transaction only resides in WMS, you are not touching any of the system or department boundaries. That might be okay to keep there. But again, I would rather keep everything centralized than having multiple touch points, I guess. The payment, payment, please don't do that. Please. Please. WMS is not supposed to be your finance, okay? It's supposed to be for warehouse. That's crazy. Inventory inquiry or advice is an electronic document that allows suppliers to share inventory information with their trading partners. But again, with the inventory as well, you could be all over the place. Your source of truth should be centralized system, whatever that is. I don't know. Decide that. Make your mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is where the real truth is. Overall, when you look at their integrations, where they really hang out, to be honest. Okay, and these guys are going to be in QuickBooks ecosystem. You are always going to see Oracle, NetSuite, SAP as well, but for the most part, they are really hanging out in that QuickBooks Shopify ecosystem. Okay, in general. Now, even if somebody is using NetSuite, sometimes the architecture could be all over the place. Okay, they might use NetSuite only for finance, and then everything else is happening inside WMS, and that could be a crazy architecture as well at times. But again, depending upon how you are designing your transactions and the business flows. For the most part, if you're pure play retail, you might be okay in keeping a lot of things in WMS. But if you have distribution manufacturing, then a lot more ERP is going to be there in general. So again, these are architectural decisions and the boundaries that you need to decide. Most systems will be able to do a lot. Now you need to make your mind in terms of which system is going to do what. Now, this is where the real power of WMS systems is, to be honest. Okay, so when you get into the real robotic scenarios, get into real AMRs, the SRS system, and Dave, we saw the whole show Automate, just full of the things that
Yeah.
WMS space. I'm just shocked, to be honest. Okay, so this is where the WMS shines. Okay, this you want to keep as much as possible inside your WMS. WMS should be your governing authority to direct all of these robots. Okay, that's where the real power of WMS is. Sometimes these WMS companies, they are spending their time in creating invoices, purchase orders, which is great for these smaller companies just because they don't have an ERP. But this is the real power of WMS. And when you are doing WMS selection, you want to make sure that they have all of this to be able to support all of your automation goals. And they require a lot of data that is not going to go to your e-commerce ERP. Real estate data, planning data, the way you are going to be controlling, all of that is probably going to be inside your WMS system. Now, we have some of the functional aspect, and obviously they are able to do a lot. So we have a lot of bullet points that we can hit on here. And we have the unlimited locations bins. The locations bins, depending upon your transaction, sometimes these locations might not reside inside ERP. My retail friends are always going to argue that, okay, location, no ERP. Okay, ERP should not know locations. But again, depending upon what you are trying to build, if you are building omni-channel architecture, and if you want that central view, because once you bypass ERP, then either do everything inside WMS or don't do. I mean, make your mind overall in terms of which system is going to do what. If you need the central view of any of the location, you need that centralized, then that has to be in the central system. And WMS is going to be a departmental system. It's not designed to be a central system unless you are a pure play warehouse business. Then it's a different story. Inventory and locations management, transfers between locations and warehouses, for the most part, that is going to be inside WMS, just because you need barcoding. So wherever you have barcoding, that's probably going to be inside WMS. But the handshake needs to be clarified in terms of who is doing what. The purchase order management is slightly trickier. I think the way they have mentioned, and I think we saw this in the other WMS system as well, what they mean is they are simply storing a copy so that they can manage the workflow in their system. But the parent of that, the origination, is going to be always inside some sort of ERP system, because procurement folks are not going to use WMS. So you need to do the MRP, whatever, if you have any of that inside your ERP system. Procurement is probably going to be inside ERP system as well. Now, depending upon business type, sometimes that could differ, but for the most part, they are probably not going to be inside WMS. Returns management is always tricky and very interesting, even though it's going to be probably 2% of your business, but it's probably going to be painful. Okay, really, really, really painful. Okay, if you have a lot of returns, then obviously WMS, because if you need barcoding, you need to go through quality process, and sometimes that could be a very tricky process as well, whether you want to do that inside ERP or WMS, because you need to design the handshakes. But for the most part, returns management is probably okay inside warehouse. But again, make your mind, just do it in one place, don't do it in multiple places, otherwise it could be very confusing. Back orders and damaged products, that's definitely warehouse, no questions there. Wave, batch, cluster picking, now this is where the real beauty of your WMS is. This is where the money is inside WMS. If you want to design, okay, which feature should I focus on, you should be focusing on here. That's where WMS shines, all of these picking scenarios, because that's where you are going to get the warehouse KPIs, and that's where you are going to get the efficiencies. Batch shipment, label printing, very interesting, depending upon how you are doing your warehouse processes, that could be very interesting as well. But for the most part, that's probably going to be inside WMS. Substitute products is very interesting. That could mean a lot of different things. So make sure you are not misunderstanding, because you are going to see these terms inside the e-commerce solutions as well. So what does that mean? What is it doing for you? So you need to figure that out. And sometimes if you are doing, let's say, the order management, sometimes they might need to replace. So why are you replacing that? Because you are making slightly more decision here. You are replacing a product. Typically, WMS should not be making those decisions. But again, I mean, in some cases, let's say if they have to replace a inventory inside the warehouse, okay, just because that's broken or something like that, then they need to make that decision. And now, if you are not sending that to ERP, or you are sending that to ERP after processing the transaction, then ERP is going to get these feeds from many different places, and sometimes it could be very hard for it to keep the inventory. Again, if ERP is keeping the inventory, if ERP is not keeping the inventory, different argument. Questions, comments, Dave?
No, so far so good. I agree with where you're going with everything.
Yeah, the package type selection algorithm, in my opinion, ERP has nothing to do with that. Keep that inside WMS. Okay, that's very, very, very WMS centric functionality. You should keep everything, every piece of that inside WMS. The more you keep there, the easier it is going to be, so that you don't pollute the ERP database, to be honest. Now, these guys like to talk, as the accounting and ERP integration, which is very vague in general. From their perspective, it's okay. But the warehouse robotic integration, that's where it shines. Scale integration, super critical. You need to have that WMS, TMS, both of them might require that. These guys have it. That's a big deal, because that drives a lot of processes. Sometimes the whole dock functionality need to be automated, and the scale need to be integrated. It needs to send the weight to your WMS to be able to account for that, and based on that, you are going to be doing the allocation, the accounting, so many different things, right? Client-based setup. I think that's pretty good. I'll go to the next one. Okay, so now this is where this is my favorite topic. Then I look at any of the architecture. Okay, this is where rubber meets the road, because then we are talking about a real business, that is getting modeled, from the transaction perspective. So here there are a lot of things that are happening. The way architecture is designed, obviously, this is for high volume business, and they are very, very, very clear that they are designed for DTC businesses. But sometimes the customers might get confused, when they look at this, even though they are trying to sell that I am really high volume. That's why you need to pay attention when you look at this one. So the way it is designed, you have the e-commerce company warehouse, and then we have, okay, so this is actually going to your customers through your last mile delivery. The warehouse is getting the orders. Now, where those orders are coming from is going to be really interesting. And I think it will make more sense on the next slide when we have slightly more detailed architecture. But this warehouse, what it is doing is it's sending on the truck, as you can see, and then you have the segregation hub. So again, this is a very, very, very distribution-centric organization network, the way it is designed. But again, the whole picture is missing from this. So this is a very warehouse-centric perspective, the way the transactions are designed. But you as a company need to model everything else as well. So you need to make sure that you are not misunderstanding this one. Now, you have the demand planning, and these guys only talk about 3 or 4 different things. So you have the demand planning. Demand planning becomes your supply planning. Supply planning has the purchase order. Purchase order comes directly to your supplier. Suppliers are sending into warehouse. In between there is a lot that is happening. Okay. So you need to make sure you understand that. Any comments, Dave?
If only it were this simple.
Right? Exactly. So now, some more slides, and we have one more detailed architecture, and I think, we want to spend some more time there, to be honest. That's where people will sort of start relating, where you are sort of violating the boundary of architecture, to be honest. So here we have, 3 different systems. And again, there is going to be a lot of overlap. Some systems are selling themselves as WMS, WES, WCS, warehouse. What is that, Dave? Ecosystem. In manufacturing, we have heard those terms, right?
Yeah.
They are trying to create as many terms as possible, and obviously it's very confusing. And it's equally confusing for us as well, to be honest, to be able to track all of these technologies. So here, overarching view, to be completely honest, from the WMS perspective. So it's WMS is slightly more managerial system, which is managing. Here they are saying manages the flow of inventory, assigning labor tasks, tracking orders from receipt to shipping, has reporting capabilities. But again, that is very WMS centric view. Okay, don't get confused with the term flow of inventory, because that could mean a lot of different things. Okay, so make sure you are understanding the perspective. WES is meant to complement WMS. It is meant to replace the WCS. And WCS, now they are calling this as more of the control center, because you need the command and control for all of these robotic applications. And if you want the real control center, the way you would have control center in the space center, I guess, right? So there's the same thing, but the interaction is very different. So obviously it needs a lot of intelligence, a lot of data. It's a very thick system. It is designed to do a lot. That itself is very thick, and when you are going to overburden it with other responsibilities, that's where you are going to have issues with your architecture. But overall, the control center is supposed to be put to flight, pick to flight, robotic sorting, robotic anything that is happening with the robot is where the control center is. Labor management, again, labor management could mean a lot of different things, but the interaction or the handshake between your robot and the labor, that is what is happening here. Workstation management, critical, super critical, in this one. Conveyor management is big, to be completely honest. Voice commands. So everything that is happening with the warehouse hardware is what it is. That's what is the control center. And then you have the execution system, which is going to be a very technical arm of the warehouse systems that is doing the real work. Manager is the manager, WMS. Okay, now this is where my problem is with the architecture. So obviously, as we have agreed and discussed, that any architectural documentation that you are going to see, everybody is going to create from their perspective. So obviously, this is coming from Logiwa. So obviously, they are going to create from their perspective. No questions there. Okay, they have done a wonderful job in mapping everything out. Where my problem with this is, typically, let's say if Logiwa is going to be used as sort of the ERP system, then or the centralized system, then you are probably okay. But when you are doing this sales channel integration, okay, this is where my problem is. Okay, with this architecture, you can do that. Technically, that's possible. You can do technically whatever you want. Okay, but when you do this, you sort of are creating multiple handshakes, multiple areas of responsibility. You are keeping your sales orders, you are processing your sales orders in different systems, different boundaries, and that's where you are sort of all over the place. I mean, I like to keep things simple. Design one system that is going to do one thing that is really, really good, and then design the boundaries of that system. What is the role of that system in the architecture? So this is where my problem is. Here you are doing EDI, you are directly talking to channels, and this is very similar to Dave, in the real world. We are going to do a ERP project, right? If we have 4 people in the engagement, if those 4 people are going to talk to the client, everybody is going to have their own versions.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
Right? So this is whether you talk about real life, whether you talk about system architecture, it's a very, very, very similar example, that you need to have the central point of communication from the architectural clarity perspective, and then you'll have much easier life.
Yeah, I think the other challenge with it, the bigger the business, the more initiatives and kind of projects that they typically have going on in parallel. So while you could be talking with one group that is focused on one piece of this puzzle, you've got another group who you're maybe not interfacing with, who's focused on a completely different aspect of it. And again, it gets back to having the overall system architecture and understanding what you ultimately want that future state to look like, and then building the roadmap to help you get to that point. And I like your point about kind of building, this slide specifically, building, OEMs have a tendency to build the architecture around themselves. And the reality is that unless you are scrapping everything, or you're going to insert yourself as the primary, source of truth and system, then this is, not an accurate picture. So while you have the ability to, to do several things, you really need to take a look at your own system architecture from your, again, business model, current state, anticipated future state and process standpoint. That's where it needs to start. Design your architecture, go from there. Um, you know, in integrating the pieces you have and you like and you want to keep, or not. That's kind of a separate conversation in my mind.
Yeah, could not agree more. And to be completely honest, the architectural principles and the data modeling, the way it is designed in the software world, it's very similar to real world. Okay, technically you can do anything. A
Yeah.
child can probably bear, a parent, I guess, or give birth to a parent. Technically speaking, okay, that's how weird technology gets, right? I mean, you can do pretty much anything, but does it make sense? In the real life, in the real world? That's where you need to use census, overall from the business perspective, from the transaction perspective. Technically anything is possible. Do you have budget to do that?
No, I totally agree with you. It kind of jogged my memory on what you said earlier, and I know we've talked about this previously, but I think it's a good point to reiterate. Especially on a slide like this where you're looking at potentially having a solution as your centralized hub. Understanding the load that the transactions at the transaction level, the load that it's putting on a system and what it needs to do. So, we talk about, talking about the complexities of ERP versus, let's say, a WMS, and not that this is, you could argue which one is more complex, based on the implementation, but at its highest level, you really need to understand what's the transaction flow and volume coming through any one of these technologies and systems to understand, what's the resource impact of that? How's that going to impact your business? If you've heavily overloaded this because of the amount of transaction volume that has to flow through this system, that really it shouldn't be there because of poor architecture, that's going to impact your system resources. In a cloud-based system, you could be paying for that, right? You'd be paying, somebody's going to be paying for it, and it's probably going to be you. So those are all things that go into play with any of these decisions. It's a very, very complex decision making process that needs to happen.
Yeah, and that is such a great point, to be honest. I mean, it is very similar to operational planning. The way the real world operational planning, the way you are going to plan a city. Okay, you are going to study every single traffic source, how the traffic is going to move. And based on that, you are going to design every single touch point. Just because you are not seeing in the system, it does not mean that you don't have to plan. You have to plan every single transaction in the system to be informed. And I have heard shocking comments, even from very, very, very seasoned IT professionals in terms of how they think about system design, to be honest. But again, it's not any different from your real world planning or the way you are going to plan your operations. So here, this is a slightly more view of their product, which is phenomenal. If anybody sees this, they are going to say, oh my goodness, this is the UX that I want.
It looks a little different than some other technology screens we've reviewed.
Right. But I mean, again, analyze your transactions, the way they are being processed, and what you are trying to achieve. Just because it looks pretty, it looks easy, does not mean that it will get you the business results. So, end of the day, it is going to be your process design and what your users are going to be comfortable with. So, this is designed for high volume, most likely for high volume businesses. This is probably not going to be a problem. But if you are trying to do something else, then obviously you are going to have a lot of issues, even though it is going to be easy based on appearance. More comments, Dave?
No, it's just, it kind of reminded me of a story. I mean, simplicity, I think that's a great point because simplicity is not always, not necessarily always the best thing. And, I was involved in an implementation, and we're doing a replacement of a system. And it was really interesting because the kind of anticipated, user feedback would have been positive, and it ended up being negative because people were used to having access to additional information that was helpful, for them, and the simplified version did not have all of the things that needed to, that you needed to have immediate access to. So, while on the surface you could look at it and say, oh, this is great, it's going to be really simple for all my users. Again, when you gloss over and you don't understand what the processes are behind that, how that data is not just fed to people, but what they do with it, how it impacts the rest of the process flow. And again, this is both internal and externally, right? Yep. Because you could make the same argument on the UI side for a customer coming to your website and not being able to see if you have inventory at the Detroit location versus the Toronto location, right? So it impacts everything. But it just popped into my head this one situation that I was a part of, because I would have anticipated it to go a different way, and it was like, no.
Yeah, love that story, man. Love that situation, to be honest. That's such a great example.
Yeah.
So some more points here. I don't know if we covered everything, so let's review. Source of truth for PO might be ERP. Again, PO, they are using PO term. Again, it is from their perspective, so you still need to do the document design in terms of what is the source of authority and what is PO in this context. Okay, I think that's pretty much it on this one. Now they have some very interesting things. For example, they have the production management as well. And again, from their perspective, obviously these are great capabilities. There is no questions there. Okay. But the only challenge with the way they are spelled out could be for the customers, the way they are reading it. Okay. So it's not, anything misrepresented, anything. It's just that the way people are going to be looking at, okay, ERP production management, WMS production management, they must be similar, right? No, they are not. And that's where the expertise comes in, to be honest. Okay, in reading between these things, reading between the lines. So here, when they say production management, it is going to be the production management when you are going to be doing the receive, as well as if you need sort of the warehouse handshake there, because the barcode is going through your warehouse, but then you need to go through ERP, if you are sending back anything to ERP. So there's going to be the involved handshake. They are not doing the actual production management, they are doing the barcoding side of the production management, the warehouse side of production management. So you need to be clear in terms of how you are reading these things. Now, the damaged items are great. And again, the difference between a simple system versus slightly more complex system is going to be in terms of how much traceability do they have across the system boundaries. Okay, what data layers are they able to support so that you have that traceability in the other systems as well. So for example, in this particular case, you are recording a damaged item, which is great, you can record. But when you are going to communicate this to your ERP is going to wonder, okay, what the hell is happening here? And how am I accounting for the cost? Now, if you are on QuickBooks does not care. Okay, just throw it somewhere. I don't care. Right? But then you are going to lose the traceability. Okay, why are these items damaged? Let's say if this particular product was for like $1 million and you have damage on $1 million, you definitely want to know what is happening there. So again, these systems may not have those layers that you are going to find in the bigger systems. That's where the traceability comes in. So just because it looks easy does not mean that it is going to do what you are trying to do from the business perspective. So I know how much time we have. 7 minutes, right? So we'll cover probably 1 or 2 reviews. So here, this is a warehousing company, 51 to 200 employees, great, fit, used daily for 6 months, 2 years ago. Here they are complaining about there are costs per store connection, customized packing slips, automation rules. You can purchase packs, but these costs add up quickly when working with customers that are omni-channel. Okay, any e-commerce centric products that you are buying, okay, be extremely careful with that, with their pricing. The way they are priced, they all are copying Shopify. Okay, Shopify has a very different pricing model because they are also your payment processor. That's why they are able to charge all of that money. But that does not mean that every single add-on that sits on top of Shopify is going to charge that. They are justifying that because, they are always trying to justify from the e-commerce volume perspective, which is great. But at the same time, for the customer, when you are going to look at the overarching price, good luck with that. That could get really expensive. Sometimes they could be more expensive than the ERP system, which is probably going to have 10,000 different tables and module that is hosting your entire business. So just be extremely careful with your e-commerce pricing. Okay, one more review, I guess, and then we can open up for the commentary. Here they are saying reviewed 4 years ago. They found this UI to be difficult. Can you believe this? Okay, so in this particular case, this has 51 to 200 employees, which is a sizable business, and you would feel that they have probably hired some seasoned people inside their warehouse. In this particular case, this person is saying the UI is not as intuitive as it should be for a modern software platform. You are kidding me right now. Okay.
We need Andy. We need Andy here with his stock commentary of it. Depends on what experiences you've had, because
Exactly.
Just seeing the screens, I mean, the screen layout alone is significantly cleaner and much more in line with what you'd expect from a cloud-based solution.
Yeah,
Yeah.
clearly this guy has never used the real WMS solution, right? That's why
Yeah.
that's why they are complaining about that. So nav is clunky and not streamlined at all. There are little bugs here and there that drive me crazy, which is crazy. You should never have bugs in a commercial software. That would drive me crazy as well. And maybe it was heavily customized. That could be a reason why you have bugs. Sometimes that may not be the fault of the enterprise software vendor, because
Yeah.
you customize it, you felt that it will be easy, but now you are getting all of these bugs. Should be simple fixes, but just lots of little error messages, and the software isn't very forgiving, and it is not supposed to be forgiving. Either you can forgive or you can have data nightmare. It is going to be your choice. What do you want to have? All customers share a single database and a multi-tenant architecture, which is also a very interesting comment, I guess, there. So Dave, I don't want to take too much time. We have 4 minutes. It's really your show now.
Yeah, no, overall, obviously a good solution for the right size company and the right type of business. I mean, it's kind of no different than the things that we say wrapping up a lot of these. Definitely some interesting functionality. I was a little surprised on the the returns processing. I would have thought there would be a little bit deeper functionality around there. Maybe just something that we couldn't necessarily see. So I don't want to say for sure that that is missing.
So that's on me, Dave. Okay, the way it is captured in the slides, and again, I mean, this is just a slide, right? We are not looking at everything.
Yeah,
So that's
absolutely.
definitely on me.
Absolutely. So
I'll take it.
No, I just overall, like I said, I think a good system. It comes down to, again, I think the big challenge for businesses that are out there that are going through any type of evaluation like this is spending more time asking questions from the process perspective, the system architecture perspective, the what are some of the longer term goals from a business model perspective, so that you can understand how a decision like this today is going to impact you down the road. The other part I would add is, and again, it's challenging because I have seen both sides of it, but the kind of last comment that we ran through in terms of, I want to give it, the software isn't very forgiving, right? And it's something we talk about because from a data integrity, and visibility standpoint, look, you don't want to be able to erase things. You don't want to be able to delete things. You want to be able to understand, where are my costs, and whether that is a returned item, whether that is, some other thing that is impacting that, where does that cost go? How do we allocate it? How do we allocate it in the future? What kind of purchase price variances do we have from vendors? All of those things that happen in business every single day, right? How do we keep visibility into that? So, and I think it's hard because as businesses get launched and grow, they're going through software programs like QuickBooks, and you can see where you can delete things completely out of the entire, registry. And, it's like, ooh, I got rid of that. Nobody will see my mistake.
Why can't you delete it?
And then you get involved in some larger businesses and you understand, the financial integrity that you're trying to provide to people, in transparency, really. And so, I think that's the other part of it. So, It's nice that this software kind of is appeasing both sides of that. But yeah, just a couple of comments there.
Yeah, could not agree more. And I think it goes back to, sometimes the skill set, and from the architecture and design perspective, you can simplify the process if you might not have as deep a skill set because they might not have as much experience using WMS ERP system. So obviously it's going to be a steep curve for them. So you can simplify the process from the front end perspective, but then you are probably going to have implications in the back end. Keeping that in mind, okay, understanding the cost both ways, which is more expensive for you is where the real money is, to be honest. Okay, just because somebody saying software is easy does not mean that you are not going to have problems in the back end process. So design your workflows, analyze the cost. When you are simplifying something, are you making something else difficult?
Yeah. No, that's a great perspective, a great point on that. And again, I don't think enough businesses are spending time on the front end like that to understand the impact of the decisions that they're making. And they're letting software demos and things, that they believe to be true to lead their decision-making process. And I think in the long run, that is costing, a lot more dollars and cents than people realize. So, and again, you see that in many forms. You see that in, process inefficiency. You see that by overhiring and then, having to let people go in ebbs and flows of business. You see that manifest itself in a lot of other ways. Some business you can see it right on the P&L. I know. So, but yeah, that's a great point to spend some more time in there and get comfortable with it before getting close to that system selection phase, and for sure before you get close to the implementation phase.
Could not agree more. So we are at 6:31 point, I guess. So any more final comments, or shall we close, Dave?
Yeah, I say we close her up.
Awesome, guys. So, that's it for today. If you joined for the first time, this was part of our industry series for which we meet every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you guys are going to be here next week. We're going to come back with another vendor or the solution. On that note, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in tonight. I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Dave Chrysler, head over to thechrysler.club. It's thechrysler.club. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.